Doing business and banking offshore is a great way to diversify, gain asset protection benefits, increase yield, get access to new investments, and for a whole lot of other reasons. But there are also some reasons why you should not bank offshore, and I've got 4 specific reasons in this video. Hey guys, I'm Andrew Henderson, and if you'd like to learn how to create a holistic offshore plan with our Nomad Capitalist team, you can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. Now let's talk about why you wouldn't want to bank offshore. I'm a big advocate of diversifying. I have bank accounts all around the world, some smaller, some bigger, but here are 4 reasons why you might want to reconsider. Number 1, your goal is to hide your money. Now, if you're new to this offshore stuff, you may have seen movies like The Wolf of Wall Street, any kind of TV crime show where they talk about people hiding their money, taking big barrels of cash and putting them in some offshore bank. And that's just not really how it works. I guess there are a few banks around the world that I hear about where they take people bringing in lots of cash. Certainly places like Hong Kong and Dubai are more cash friendly than their Western counterparts. But if your goal is to hide your money, understand that not only has it always been illegal, but now it's pretty impractical as well. Things like FATCA in the United States, CRS, or the Common Reporting Standard around the world, other tools that governments use, intergovernmental agreements, allow your government more than ever to know what kind of money you have. Now, people say, well, Andrew, what's the point of having an offshore bank account if not for hiding money? All the reasons we mentioned, diversification, holding different currencies, gaining higher rates of return. Many banks, you can get 5% on your US dollars rather than 1%. You can grow your money faster. And yes, you can make it a little bit harder for people to get to your money. I've told the story numerous times about how I had the state of California come in and suck money out of my account once for a tax debt I had already paid on time and in full. They didn't care. It became my job to correct the record, and it took me a long time to get them to finally give me the money they double dipped back. Now imagine if they had taken a lot more of my money. It certainly would have been harder if I had some money somewhere else. And so the goal was not to hide your money. The goal was not to evade your obligations. If you have an offshore bank account and your country requires you to report it, I, as the goody two-shoes of the offshore industry, do think that you should do that. Reason number 2 that you don't want to bank offshore is that you think you're going to avoid tax. Now, hold on a second. There are legal ways that we help people with to reduce their tax or even eliminate their tax burdens, but it involves more than just changing where the money goes into the bank. And so again, people get notions from the media that if only the money you earn in the United States is deposited to a bank account in Singapore, that you won't be taxed in the United States. Well, that's not true because you live in the United States and the income is from the United States. And so it's going to take a bit more than just changing the bank account to change your tax status. People also wrongly think that, oh, well, if I have the bank account in Singapore, they'll tax my income. No, it depends on where your tax nexus is. There are many different factors. It gets complicated. But if the goal was simply to hide money and to avoid tax, it's not going to work. I've seen all the stories of people who have been in this industry who didn't play by the rules, who got cut up. Because most of the ways that people try and get away with stuff in this regard are pretty unsophisticated and they're pretty easily caught. Reason number 3 is that you expect to use low-tier countries. Again, turn on the TV. They talk about money going to offshore centers like Aruba and all kinds of other places, the Seychelles. Nothing wrong with these countries. Not saying you should never bank there. But what I would say is if you value easily sending and receiving money, you want to have your money in a respected jurisdiction. Because of the first 2 factors, because the world's governments have come and started cracking down on money laundering and terrorism and tax evasion, now some of these smaller economies are being forced out of the offshore banking business or are having a hard time. I have personally heard from people who have had money in lower tier country bank accounts frozen. I've had people who were doing business and none of their business partners could or would send them money to those bank accounts. And so I think what a lot of people look at when they're first starting their offshore research is, because they kind of think, oh, privacy is the goal, or not paying taxes is the goal. Well, hey, if I find like some weird country that's some tiny island, then that'll make that easier. No, it actually doesn't. The reality is offshore banking could mean banking in Singapore or Hong Kong or Switzerland, the Isle of Man or Panama or any number of other places that you don't live in and that you don't have connections to. You can have a non-resident bank account in those countries. And for me, I would rather bank at the institution that's ranked number 10 or number 20 in the most strong banks in the world than bank at a bank that is run by who knows who on some tiny island. Now, are there some good banks on some islands? Yes. There are a few island banks that don't make any loans whatsoever. So if your goal is to reduce risk and you just want them to hold your money offshore, those aren't bad options. But by and large, you see a lot of banks popping up. I saw in the Comoros, there's one island that of the 3 islands that they control that has their own independent financial authority. Your dog can get a banking license there. And so if you're going to pay those banks there thinking, oh, they say they can help me avoid FATCA, it's just a bad deal. You want to bank in reputable jurisdictions. Reason number 4 is if you're going offshore to be cheap. For all of the aforementioned reasons, it's harder than ever to put together a great offshore plan. Now, what I tell people who are looking at dipping their toe into this stuff is open an offshore bank account first. Open one. Maybe it's a small balance, whatever small is to you. Whether you find a bank that takes $1,000, $50,000, whatever it is that you feel comfortable with, just dipping a toe in. Get comfortable first, okay? And so to do that, you don't need a lot of sophisticated planning. You want to talk to some tax professionals. This is what we help people with all the time. We connect people with tax professionals to make sure that when they have offshore bank accounts, offshore companies, things like that, they're reporting them correctly anywhere where it needs to be reported. U.S. citizens especially have requirements. You need to file your FBARs. There are other forms you have to file. It's not the end of the world. But if you're trying to put together a more sophisticated strategy, it's not going to be cheap. What I can also tell you is banking offshore in and of itself is probably going to cost you a little bit more. Now, there are banks in countries like Georgia that we talk about where they're basically local retail banks that accept non-residents. And so their fees are really pretty small. But if you're looking for a really robust bank and you want to be in, let's say, Luxembourg or Liechtenstein or Switzerland or Singapore, they might charge you $40 a month for the privilege. There are banks that we work with in Austria where it's 30 euros a quarter. There are banks in all kinds of other countries that charge you annual fees, setup fees. You probably have to go to the country in a lot of cases to set up a bank account, so that's the cost. And so what some people do is they'll say, oh, I don't want to pay bank fees anymore. If you're, let's say, in the United States, fees at your bank may be among the cheapest out there. If you keep $2,000 in most U.S. checking accounts, you can waive fees. You're not going to do any better than that going offshore. You're going to pay a little bit more. But again, you're getting access to higher quality banking services, stronger jurisdictions. Maybe there's new investments you can make. Interest rates are higher, different currencies. You can diversify. So for me, part of the perspective of Nomad Capitalist is just about protecting yourself so that no matter what happens, you've got yourself covered. To me, getting into the offshore world with banking and companies and business is all about diversification. We're not trying to break any rules. We're trying to adhere to the rules, even if we don't agree with them. I don't agree with all the rules. I think some of them go way too far. But the point is, you're going to do yourself a bigger disservice by not following the rules. No one's letting you wheel a pallet full of cash into their bank. No one's letting you accept, shady transactions from weird countries. You want to get yourself set up properly. You want to do this stuff correctly. Check out our channel for more videos on how offshore banking works. Get yourself educated and make sure you do it properly. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, Learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.